Well, a typical weekend for the Toronto Blue Jays. A lot of ups, a lot of downs. But at the end of the day, it's a series win against the Red Sox. It was a good weekend overall, I guess.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter account at Locked On Jays. You can also follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Blue Jays. And if you're new here to YouTube, hit the subscribe button. It's free. It's easy. It keeps us top of your page. You guys get your shorts, your videos, your live streams, your podcasts, the whole ordeal. And if you haven't already, or if you are listening anywhere else, we appreciate that too. Carter, it was a strange weekend for the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously. You smacked the Red Sox in game one. Game two, you go and get smacked. And in game three, it's a gritty team victory. And I think overall, we're thrilled that it's a series win. I'm over the moon with a series win against an AL East opponent. You need to get those and rack those up. But like I said, there was a lot of good. There was a lot of bad. That second game in particular was a lot of bad. And a lot of stuff in between. And there also has been a move. We'll talk about that later on in the show. It's some Will Wagner action for those of you who are big Will Wagner fans from last season. You maybe will be happy with what you hear. Carter, I guess thoughts, feelings, sort of everything in between on this weekend.
Every single time you think this team might roll over after getting punched in the mouth by the Boston Red Sox in that second game, they had every reason to go out there in that third game and kind of just throw it away. Morale could have been pretty low. You lost 15 runs on you. They put up a football score on your team. That's not exactly what you want over a weekend series, but they can continue to just show that they can overcome adversity. They never get too high. They never get too low. And it doesn't really matter what this team is doing if they're on a insane hot streak or insane cold streak. They don't necessarily lose their momentum whatsoever. They just approach every game like it's a new baseball game, like it's a new day, and that's a great mindset to have. This team continues to roll with the punches and gets another series win. Just a big series, especially against an AL East opponent, especially when you do have, again, probably your biggest series of the year up to this point in a New York Yankees 4-game set. The Boston Red Sox offense is absolutely horrific without Rafael Devers, Alex Bregman being on the line. Like, Yoshida's not there either. They do have some guys that aren't there. But, oh, my God, this offense, very tough to watch. They have been the worst offense in the MLB since Rafael Devers got traded. Who would have thought? You trade your best offensive player, your offense gets significantly worse. So it is a little bit funny seeing that happen. But, yeah, just a very good weekend once again by the Toronto Blue Jays, discounting, obviously, that second game.
Yeah, obviously. I mean, it's sort of crazy, right? I look at this Boston Red Sox team, and you do think they can still do damage. But, man, yeah, after the Devers trade, I don't know if it took the heat out of the room, the steam out of the room. I don't know what it was. But, man, this offense is definitely not as good as it could have been looking back maybe a month or so. So, crazy times, but I think we might as well start with game one. We'll get into, obviously, the big game three, the game that decided it all of who was going to take the series. And the game sort of we want to focus on because I think there are a lot of good things that came out of this. And we won't go game by game specific on every little thing, but sort of the majority and the biggest takeaways from the weekend. And Carter, I guess you got to start with Jose Berrios. I mean, what an absolute great day from him, only giving up 4 hits, 8 punch-outs, 1 walk. Jose Berrios 4-3 on the year. I mean, he looked unbelievable.
Yeah, he's been an anchor in the starting rotation over this last little bit here. Just providing the Blue Jays length, which was a huge thing a couple weeks ago. Now, hopefully, it won't be as important to get that length from Jose Berrios to a little bit more of an established starting rotation. But it's just the exact experience that we see from Jose Berrios every single year. He's probably going to be a mid to high 3s ERA guy. Right now, he's at 3.26, is on a very good stretch. Over the last little bit here in his last 7 games to 2.05 ERA, over 44 innings pitched. That's almost 7 innings per start. That's very good over that stretch. 28 hits, 10 earned runs, 36 strikeouts, 212 walks, a whip under 1. That's what you love to see from Jose Berrios. Still one of the better middle tier starting pitchers in baseball. Very reliable. Again, an Iron Man, knock on wood, not going to get injured, going to be available for every single start. Just, again, continue his dominance, continue this momentum that he has been carrying throughout his last couple of starts.
Yeah, and obviously, I mean, they bring in Sandlin, they bring in Schultz, and the Red Sox are dead in the water at this point, right? Like it's over. They're not trying to really, or you sort of take the steam out of the sails. The offense does, and so you got to give the offense some credit as well. I mean, they get 16 hits total in this ball game, and that's going to play any day of the week. Anytime that you can get that many hits and not just get the hits, but score the runs in situations that you need to. That's how you destroy baseball teams, right? That's how you take the steam out of the sails or the wind out of the sails. And that's exactly what this offense is able to do. So just a shout out to them. I mean, you could go down the list. There was a lot of guys that did a lot of good things. I think Nathan Lucas and Jonathan Colossi were the only guys to go hitless in that ball game. So, I mean, really, it's a full offensive front from this group in that first game. So, yeah, shout out to them for that game for sure.
And shout out to Andrus Gimenez to getting his average up to 200. We're on our way, maybe to 210. That's what we're looking for from Andrus Gimenez. But realistically, pretty good series from Gimenez. I'm not expecting literally anything from this guy offensively at this point. So if he can produce a couple of hits, especially at the bottom of the order, drive in some runners, especially just get on base. When you are a guy like Andrus Gimenez and you are a good base runner, you do have the ability to steal bases. But the issue is you can't steal bases if you don't get on base. So you got to get the first base to be able to steal bases. If we can continue to see Andrus Gimenez just build some sort of momentum at this point, like if he can hit like 235, honestly, just get walks, kind of just do jobs. He has to move runners up. Maybe he has to lay a couple bunts down. That's kind of the point we're at with Andrus Gimenez. But he had a couple good swings in the series, so I do want to give a shout out to him. But hopefully he can continue to be like a little bit more productive than what we've seen, because 200 batting average. I know it's not the most meaningful stat, but a 200 average is not necessarily going to play. That's what the Boston Red Sox team average was since Rafael Devers has been traded, and they have one of the worst offenses in baseball. So Andrus Gimenez might fit pretty well in that Red Sox offense, but obviously he is here on the Toronto Blue Jays to stay for the foreseeable future. But yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I mean, I think a bigger conversation is coming around Andrus Gimenez of what do you do with them, right? When you get all these guys back and you have your full-on set lineup, say you were going to the playoffs, right? You have to play him at this point, I would assume. So are you hitting him 8? Are you hitting him 9? Sort of where does he slot in? Do you want him to be the guy that tries to flip over the lineup, or is that somebody else's job and you play him at 8? Not a huge deal, but something that eventually we are going to have to talk about when, you do get Daulton Varsho back, when you do see Santander. Well, who knows if you do see Santander come back into the lineup. I'm still not a whole lot of word on him. I don't even think he was sprinting yet, Carter. I think he ended up taking another couple days. So who knows what's going on? We'll have to probably dive into that more as soon as we get some news on that. But we'll continue on, I guess, into the second game, because really, I think the majority of what I want to talk about comes from game 2 and game 3. Game 1 was great. It was a great win. But it was one of those ones that the fans can just enjoy because it was a slaughtering. And Carter, we will take a break. We won't talk about game 2. There is a few things specifically we want to talk about in game 2. Obviously, I mean, we could just say it right now. Coming off an absolute fantastic offensive performance in game 1, the offense sort of drops the ball. I mean, you get 6 hits total, 1 run. I mean, it's just not what you want to see. I think the only good thing that I take away from this game is that we got to see Tyler Heineman pitch. And this guy is a jack of all trades, I guess, Carter.
Yeah, not a great game whatsoever. Just absolutely get punched in the mouth by the Boston Red Sox. I'm actually surprised you went off with the offense, because you play 3 innings, you're down 9-0.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming the offense there. I mean, that's impossible. It's impossible to hold a battle out of Chris Bassitt. You could tell right away, this team was dead in the water from the first inning. Chris Bassitt does not have his stuff. The command's kind of over the place. Chris Bassitt, what makes him good is that he approaches at-bats very well. He's like a chess master the way he approaches these at-bats, but it's also the command. Chris Bassitt not blowing you with velocity. He has to be able to locate his pitches. When he doesn't locate those pitches, you see that curveball to Willie Abreu in the first inning, kind of hangs over. Not the high curveball that Brayden hates, but definitely had that at the knees, kind of too much plate. And it's right over the middle at the knees. Willie Abreu was kind of sitting on it, absolutely launches that ball into the seats. I mean, he gave up 8-9 earned runs in 2 innings? Like, that's not really what you see from Chris Bassitt at all. I don't think we've seen that from Chris Bassitt this year whatsoever. So bad start from Chris Bassitt for sure. You can just go down the line. Like, you're dead in the water, honestly, after the first inning. After that, I'm like, this team probably is losing this game, even though they are good at coming back in baseball games. But just whoever you sent out there, it seemed like wasn't going to be able to get the job done. Other than one guy, I wanted to get one positive from this game, and it's Braden Fisher. This guy is absolutely ridiculous this season. He, in his last 7 starts, he hasn't given up an earned run. He has 1 appearance this year where he's given up earned runs. That is it for Braden Fisher. It happened all in 1 start. It was against the Athletics out of all teams. He gave up his only 5 earned runs of the season against that team. So maybe he has a little bit of an Achilles heel, and I guess it is the Athletics. But the guy has been absolutely dominant this year. I mean, just going over the stats, 2.05 ERA, only 22 innings pitched, but 29 strikeouts over that time, of 7.77 whip. Braden Fisher, one of those guys that not really anyone's talking about at the start of the season. Now he has fully cemented himself as honestly one of the higher leverage guys in this bullpen. That's why I was kind of surprised that John Schneider threw him out in that scenario. He is a guy that can go multiple innings, and you don't get any length from Chris Bassitt. But in a game that didn't really have any positives whatsoever, there was one in Braden Fisher.
Yeah, no, you're right. And, you took the words right out of my mouth with the offense and the pitching is that, we give sometimes the offense grief. And I think I've said this before, but we give the offense grief sometimes because they don't give anything to their pitchers. And, last year they were the pitching had to eventually get mentally out of it because the offense just wouldn't do anything. And in a game like this, the pitching from Chris Bassitt absolutely sucks the life out of the offense. I mean, it has to. You just think that is an insurmountable comeback that they would have to pull off. And I don't expect them to try to make a 9-run comeback. You just can't. And, I talk about heart and grit and everything like that as well. And if it's a 4-run, 3-run ball game, then I maybe expect the offense to try to climb back, to try to do something. 9 runs, I don't put that on the offense. Yes, it would be nice to see them do something. At the end of the day, yeah, I don't blame anybody on the offense for being mentally out of this one because, like you said, first inning, you pretty much knew, see you later. And Braden Fisher, Carter, you hit nail on the head. This guy has been an absolute workhorse for this team, something that has been needed, right? We've needed some diamond in the rough guys, and Braden Fisher has been one so far this season. Weird time to bring him in. But at the same time, you can't. They did throw Paxton Schultz. They did throw Mason Fluharty, and we'll get into those two, Carter, I think, right after the break, because I know you have some stuff that you want to talk about on Mason Fluharty. But I think that you have to choose somebody to eat some innings for you here, and it just has to be. It was somebody, and John Schneider went to Braden Fisher, as good or bad as you want to say that was. This is a bit of a nothing game. And you're hoping in game 3 that you didn't need to use him because, hey, you probably have Hoffman, you probably have Yariel Rodriguez, you probably have Brennan Little, you probably have all these guys that you can turn to. So you're like, okay, if we use Fisher here, it's not the end of the world, would be my guess.
Yeah, and there's not a lot of guys in this bullpen that I don't want to throw in most situations. It's really Chad Green and Mason Fluharty. Everyone else you have in this bullpen right now, I guess Paxton Schultz, you can throw in there. But there's a lot of guys that in a lot of situations, whether it's high leverage, lower leverage, the 7th inning, the 8th inning, there's runners on, there's no runners on. There's a lot of guys in this bullpen I trust. So you have a bunch of guys that you can go to in these situations. Braden Fisher hasn't been as established as a lot of these other guys. The trust is definitely building, and we're seeing that with the way John Schneider is using Braden Fisher in a lot of these scenarios. But it's just another guy that didn't pitch a whole lot over the last few days, so you had to eat some innings. I don't hate doing that with Braden Fisher at that point whatsoever. And obviously, when the game gets out of hand, you start seeing who the Jays are throwing. They're throwing Paxton Schultz, they're throwing Mason Fluharty, who I do want to talk about again in the second segment, and we will get into that. But is there anything else quickly from game 2 that you kind of wanted to go over other than the Mason Fluharty stuff?
Not really. I mean, again, it was one of those games that I just hated to watch. And I'll talk a little bit more about that sort of on the other side, just when it comes to a fan reaction stuff.
I got one quick thing. Is kind of going back to game 1, just some good defensive plays by this team. Like the Ernie Clement catch, absolutely ridiculous in that first inning of game 1. Has pretty good ability to keep himself up on the rail, especially when you feel yourself falling. It's very easy, like, I just want to protect myself. I have no regard for the ball. But Ernie Clement holds on the ball and then shows the umpire a little bit of showboating behind his back as well. That's kind of the Ernie Clement way. And then Aston Barger makes a pretty nice catch as well over the railing in game 2. So I just wanted to give some shout outs to some of the defensive plays that were made in this game. But bunch more here. I'll throw it back over to you for your final thoughts just over the first couple games.
Yeah, no, you're right. And you got to give those shout outs when they come because, again, Ernie Clement, could be in the conversations for a Gold Glove as a utility guy coming up. So I think we got to highlight some of those plays. And Addison Barger, I mean, we talk about his offensive prowess, which we will get into in talking about game 3, which we will do in this second segment before we get into the series previews. There's still a lot to come on the show. Me and Carter, when it's a weekend series, we have a lot to talk about, a lot of thoughts, feelings to get off. But yeah, it's always good to highlight some of the defensive plays that these other guys are making that necessarily sort of would slip under the radar in a big weekend like this. So good on you for bringing those up. We'll come back with more reaction from Mason Fluharty. We'll come back with just thoughts and feelings from a fan's perspective on the sort of the second game, plus game 3 and a series preview. Ton more coming up right after this short break. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. I can tell you guys, I had a fun weekend. We were out at the cabin. We had the Jays game on, a bunch of the guys out there, and we're all chatting it up like, oh, what bet should we play? So we putting on this, and we won. I think we came up pretty positive all weekend long. So it was a great, fun weekend of sports betting. Watching the games, being a fan, and that's sort of the perfect thing when you're with your buddies and you're all watching baseball, throwing bets down. It's fun. You're already following the action. Why not make it more thrilling? Like I said, with FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. We did both, so we hit both this weekend. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I actually told this to my buddy just on the weekend. He signed up. He got his bonus bets because we did win the first $5 he put down. So it was absolutely electric. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. So, Carter, just continuing on. Obviously, I'll throw it to you. I know you have thoughts, feelings, what you think is going to happen with Mason Fluharty. And I think it's pretty understandable. I think everybody knows where you're going to go with this. And I'll talk about sort of the perspective from what we saw from fans after game 2. So I'll throw it to you for the Mason Fluharty stuff first, though.
Mason Fluharty, a guy that was in the Toronto Blue Jays system. People did know about Mason Fluharty this year, but wasn't necessarily sure what kind of difference he was going to make on this team. Came out with guns ablaze and looked very good. Obviously, to start the season, 2-pitch pitcher. The stuff doesn't blow you away at all. His cutter's sitting at like 90, 91. So not a big velo guy whatsoever. But at the start, he was commanding his pitches very well. He was doing a very good job at throwing the sweeper away to lefties, getting them to chase on that outside corner. But with the MLB season, especially for a young baseball player, there is going to be a lot of peaks and valleys, and we are definitely in a valley right now with Mason Fluharty. Probably at a point where this guy should be in AAA. So I'm going to go over his stats over the last little bit here. So in the last 7 games, guy has a 13.5 ERA. That's just not going to play whatsoever, obviously. And that's over 5 1/3 innings, 13 hits, 8 strikeouts to 6 walks, a whip of 3.56. So that's kind of where we're at with Mason Fluharty. Over the last 15, he has a 10.66 ERA, so not too much better, over 12.2 innings pitched, and that is over 15 outings. So he's not even really completing full innings, so that's kind of an issue as well. Just giving up a lot of runs, giving up hard contact, and not giving you the outs that you want in these baseball games. So things just aren't necessarily going very well for Mason Fluharty right now. It's not helping the team. It's not helping Mason Fluharty being a young guy, a guy that does have some options. Right now, you have Brayden Little, who has been absolutely unbelievable. Just the whiff stuff from Brayden Little is absolutely insane. Guys need to have to throw strikes to get people to swing the bat. So that Brayden Little is going to be a guy that's at the top of this rotation. Very good guy from the left-handed side. And now that you do have Nick Sandlin back, can use that splitter to be effective against left-handed pitching. So I don't think you need necessarily 2 lefties. You definitely, it is nice to have the 2 lefties to just have some options. But you can use Nick Sandlin in a lot of these situations and then just call somebody else up from AAA. It's not as much who you call up just for Mason Fluharty. Send him back down, kind of work on his craft, get that confidence back up, because we've seen it especially with pitchers. If you keep throwing them out there in the major leagues and it keeps going bad, the confidence can go down pretty quickly. And it's hard sometimes for those young pitchers to get that confidence back. So I think just for the best case scenario here for everyone involved is just to send Mason Fluharty down to getting that confidence back.
I can't agree more with you. That this is an absolute mentality thing now. It's to the point where Mason Fluharty is going out there, he's getting beaten up, and he can't find it again. And this is all goes back to a confidence thing. Something we talked about with Davis Schneider was really struggling. We said he should have been sent down way earlier than he was, just to be able to go and get the confidence. A move that maybe doesn't have to be made, but maybe should be made. And just for the player's mentality, I mean, come on, you got to help the guy out a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong, it's on Mason Fluharty to now go and fix those things and get the mentality of being a dog back. But you know, you got to give him the opportunity to do that. And I don't think pitching him in games where he's going to get hurt, going to get beat up is a good solution to this. So no, you're 100% right. He just hasn't been there. He hasn't been good. He hasn't been good enough, honestly. And I hate to say that because, again, a guy I liked at the beginning of the year, but at some point you got to take your lumps and you got to know when to send guys down. Carter, I just wanted to go from the mentality of us this weekend, obviously hanging out with a lot of the guys and stuff. And I was looking on Twitter and we got a lot of texts and stuff from friends of after game 2 of like, oh my goodness, this team can't get any momentum going. They always end up dropping the next game. And it's like, yes. And I'm going to go back to something I said over the past few episodes here is the fact that this team is so strange to me because it doesn't matter if they get absolutely slaughtered in a game. They'll go out and it'll be like nothing happened. They could wipe the floor of the team and go out the next day and it's like nothing happened. It's a completely different team. It's wild to watch. You usually see teams go on these hot and cold stretches, right? But instead, this team, it almost could be day to day. So there was guys asking me what I thought about it, and I think it is completely the mentality of this team to just wipe every game off the back, right? It's as soon as it's done, that game is done and it's on to the next. Now that is usually I would say that's a good thing, right? Because it's great to bounce back from losses, but it's also sometimes you want to carry the momentum forward. So I don't know. I'm sort of in the middle on if it's a for sure good thing or a for sure bad thing. I think it's just somewhere in that mushy middle that if it's just how this team is, Carter.
Yeah, obviously, if things are going well, you want that to kind of carry over into the next games. You want people to ride those highs. But if things aren't going well, you want the short memory, the memory of a goldfish. Just keep it in the past and keep kind of pushing forward. The MLB season is very long, so there is a lot of time to have a lot of highs and a lot of lows. That is just kind of how the MLB season does go. But the first 2 games of the series are pretty weird. If you're a Jays fan, you love the first game. If you're a Red Sox fan, obviously you did not like it. And then vice versa. The Jays get absolutely annihilated in that second game. And then the Red Sox probably feel a little bit better, finally getting a win after they were on a 6-game losing streak. Then you go into game 3, and then you get the Lau show back on the mound. I've said it a bunch of times on this podcast. He was over the middle quite a bit today. Like Eric Lauer, especially with the fastball, and they just swing through it. They're either fouling it back, they're completely whiffing on it. I think he has to hide the ball very well. It's kind of tough to see on TV, but if you're behind the plate, the hitters have to have a hard time picking that baseball up. I don't care how he's doing it. It is working for the Toronto Blue Jays. He has been an absolute savior for this starting rotation. I mean, he's our 5th starter, and he has, a 2.3 ERA with just over 1 whip. Like, we're not really even talking about Eric Lauer before this season. And with the way Max Scherzer's been, the way with Bowden Francis, we've had that this whole rotation. It's been so nice to see Eric Lauer just be effective. Not necessarily his greatest performance today, but I can't complain whatsoever if my starting pitcher, especially my 5th starting pitcher, is going to give you some length and only give up 3 earned runs.
That's exactly what it is. It's the fact that we're not talking about it because he's been able to go out and do all of this stuff consistently. And, I was saying I was sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop when it comes to Eric Lauer. When is it going to be the day that, they figure it out and teams they just start beating up on him? But maybe that's not the case. And I said this, I think, on Friday's episode, is maybe this is the Eric Lauer we're seeing. He is a dog, and maybe it is a hidden ball thing, Carter, because these guys cannot pick up on it. And it is, you're right over the middle. I'm watching, I went back and even watched the highlights this afternoon just to see sort of what was going on, because I'm confused, right? I'm looking at his baseball savant. I'm looking at the FanGraph stuff, trying to piece together of what's really working for him. And there's nothing that stands out when you're just talking about metrics and all this stuff. So that's why you got to use your eye test, right? And you got to take a look just for yourself. And if some guys are working, that's why you can't go off of all these just analytic stuff. So good on Eric Lauer. Great job from him. And I got to give a shout out to somebody too, Carter. And I'll get into the offense after because there's a couple guys you got to give some shout outs to. And I really want to get into one thing in particular. But Yariel Rodriguez, Carter, Jeff Hoffman, these guys in this game. Yariel Rodriguez has been an absolute gem all season. This guy is absolutely electric. He might be the safest guy where if he goes out there at this point that I know that it's in good hands, which is a crazy thing to say coming off of last year.
Yeah, he's been ridiculous. One of the most trusted relief pitchers, like you just said, has been the epitome of consistency. It's been unbelievable watching Yariel Rodriguez let it eat from the bullpen. He just doesn't care when he goes out there. He has no regard for the length. Before you can kind of tell he was holding back a little bit. Now he's just letting it eat. And that's exactly what you want from a guy that has the velo and the stuff that Yariel Rodriguez has. Just like a madman on the mound. You just need a little bit of that fire. Has been probably, you could argue, the best relief pitcher on this team up to this point. And I wasn't necessarily high on Yariel Rodriguez, but proving a lot of the doubters wrong. I think clearly this guy should be a bullpen piece for the foreseeable future. And let's not throw him into the starting rotation, especially when you got Eric Lauer, doing Eric Lauer things. Just keep this guy in these high leverage situations and give you multiple innings. You can use Yariel Rodriguez pretty much anywhere. And this is not a bad comparison for the skill set, but this is the kind of way they've been using him. This is kind of the Trevor Richards role that you've seen with Yariel Rodriguez. It's minus the opening stuff, but you can throw him like Jays have thrown him for multi-innings. They've thrown him to close baseball games. They've thrown him in high leverage situations, inherited runners, not a clean inning. Doesn't matter for Yariel Rodriguez. You can throw him in any situation, and he is going to be dominant for your baseball team. And just going back to like the kind of this picture in totality, like we weren't thinking Yariel Rodriguez was going to be this significant to this baseball team. Brendan Little's another guy we thought would make the start or this opening roster, but didn't necessarily think he'd be pitching in high leverage situations. A lot of people would not be mad if you threw Brendan Little as a closing pitcher over Jeff Hoffman. The way things have kind of been a little bit all over the place. Then Brayden Fisher, like I just said, Mason Fluharty up till the last like month or so. He has provided this team a lot of good innings. Even Paxton Schultz has looked pretty good in some instances. Though what we talked about in the offseason was you can't necessarily just go out and spend $10 million on 4 relief pitchers. You're going to have to find some diamond in the roughs. Yariel Rodriguez, you saw a lot of the signs there last year. Same thing with kind of Brendan Little. But you have really gotten that production, and you really have gotten a ton of diamond in the roughs for this bullpen this year.
Yeah, it's been outstanding. And Carter, just going off of the Jeff Hoffman stuff, because I do want to throw him in there a little bit, punches out the side in the 9th inning, gets his 18th save of the year. I mean, again, this is a guy that we've talked about who has had his blow-ups, don't get me wrong, but has also done a pretty good job with 18 saves already on the season. What can he get up to? I guess we'll have to wait and see. But Carter, I do want to go into the offense just before, because I know we're going to get yapping about this, because I did see something online. So great. Barger's swing was absolutely gross. That pitch wasn't like over the middle, just meatball cookie, here you go. No, he fought for that pitch. That was a solid, strong hit. So great on Addison Barger. Shout out him. But that's not actually what I want to talk about. I saw a very interesting TikTok today. And I know it's TikTok, whatever you want to see. So I want to get your opinion on this. And I'll give mine after, because I don't want to spoil anything or whatever else. But one guy said the Vladdy swing to him looked like the unlock swing. It was the swing that we saw last year when he started to get on his insane hot streak. And he said, this guy on TikTok, I think it was called Cheap Seats, I believe, or something like that on TikTok. I'll go find it maybe for the next one and let you guys know and shout out him. But he said that to him, this reminded him of that unlock swing where you see the change in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. swing, and that kicks off his hot streak. And don't get me wrong, that swing was a strong swing. Like just the way the rebound of the swing, the way he leaned into it, he knew the confidence level was through the roof with Vladdy on that swing. I want to know where you said. Did that swing to you look like, wow, we're going to see an unbelievable stretch here from Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? Do you buy into this unlock swing thing at all?
Not really. I mean, I'm not going to base somebody's season off of one swing. It was a great swing, don't get me wrong, but it also was a cookie right down the middle. I'm not going to take that away. You still have to hit the mistakes. You still have to hit the ball and square it up to hit the ball out of the stadium. But with Vladdy, it's kind of been this, when is the ball going to drop? When is one of the dominoes going to start falling? We haven't really seen it. It's been this waiting game that we've been playing with Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and now we're over the halfway point of the season. Again, this guy's not playing bad baseball whatsoever. Like, the OPS is about 830. It's just, especially when you have this contract that hasn't kicked in yet, but it's always going to be the $500 million man that's always going to be around Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and just with not the lack of power, but not necessarily up to expectation. I really hope that this can be the start of something, but I'm not going to say just because of that one swing, things aren't going to change. But one thing I have noticed with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is he is starting to get that tilt back a little bit. Looks like he's really focusing on getting that back shoulder down and trying to hit the kind of up on the ball. Not necessarily an uppercut swing, but to increase that launch angle and to hit the ball in the air a little bit more, because Vladdy hits the ball so hard. If you can get the ball in the air more often than not, a lot of those are going to carry out of the ballpark. So with Vladdy, yeah, there's, I guess, like a little bit there. Like, that swing was awesome, but I'm not really taking that as like a sign that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. all of a sudden could be unlocked. I think anytime Vladdy has a good at-bat, you could probably say that.
Yeah, and that's exactly what my thought was too. And it goes back to what me and you were saying, because we were out sitting at lunch watching the game together while this was going on with a bunch of friends. Great weekend. Shout out all the the Smiths for having us out to the cabin. It was a great weekend. Great time overall. But we were out having lunch. And we're watching that. We watched that swing as we were at lunch. And the immediate thing that me and you said to each other was, wow, or you said to me was, look at this at bat. And I'm like, oh, that's a cookie. And you're like, oh, yeah. And I'm like, so in going off of what this guy's TikTok was, it's hard to judge because it was a pitch just made for Vladdy to hit a home run. So it's really hard to make an assessment on one swing with a pitch in one certain location. I can't say that, but I thought it was a good thought. And you know what? If he's right, I'll give all the hat tips in the world to this guy on TikTok because I would love to see Vladdy get unlocked and start launching baseballs because he's only at 12 long bombs this year. So you want to see that number start to creep up as we get past the halfway mark of this season, closer to the All-Star break. You really got to see that power start clicking for Vladdy.
See, and for me, it's not necessarily like what the swings look like. It's his approach at the plate. We've seen Vladdy be pretty late on a lot of fastballs kind of all season. We saw it get better, like just patches. But for me, as soon as we start seeing Vladdy hit that inside fastball and he gets the barrel around and starts launching that ball in the left field, that's when I'm going to be excited that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is back and hopefully can go on a crazy streak like he did go on last year. Not necessarily, because he just hit one right down the middle again. Can't necessarily, knock him for that because it's still hard to hit even a pitch right down the middle in the major leagues. But yeah, one swing is not going to be the outlook for my entire season with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But how awesome was that, going back to back? Addison Barger, unbelievable swing, sounded like a gunshot off the bat. Then Vladimir Guerrero Jr. just pimping the hell out of the ball. That's always going to be fun. I said pull side home runs, but like from Vladdy and Varsho specifically, those two. Santander home runs are fun too. It's just, whenever that guy's going to come back. I don't think he's swinging a bat, like you said. So it's a little bit of a mystery when we're going to see Anthony Santander. Definitely not until after the All-Star game. But home runs are a lot of fun. This team is doing it a lot more than we have seen, or at least from the start of the season. They've been hitting a lot more home runs. We're starting to see the power stick kind of come out with a lot of these players.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what happens. We got to start getting more long balls. The more the better, honestly. Keep them coming. Carter, we do have a series to preview, so do you have anything else you want to get into from Game 3 before we kick things off for the big series preview? Probably one of the biggest series of the year.
Yeah, honestly, there's still a ton more that I want to get into, but I'll end up off with one thing. Tyler Heineman has been very good for this baseball team this season, but how in the hell are you going to get picked off at first base? And the bases are loaded. Yeah. Bichette is up to the plate. The guy's hitting 400 with runners in scoring position, and you're going to get backpicked in that situation. You score 2 runs. Walker Buehler is crumbling right in front of our eyes, and you give him a free out in that instance. Doesn't necessarily matter, but really made me want to pull my hair out seeing that from Tyler Heineman. And a guy that is experienced, just a bad mental mistake from Tyler Heineman in that play.
Yeah, that sucks to see because, again, a guy we've gassed up all season long because, he's done his job. But in a big moment, in a big situation like that, that is tough, right? It's tough to watch. And, it's one of those things, you're right, we just can't gloss over and pretend it didn't happen because if something like that does happen again, we're going to have to think back to, hey, maybe do we trust this guy on the base pass? But right now, I'm not completely shutting things down on Tyler Heineman. We have seen really good things from him this season. So I will put this one as a hopeful one-off, but something that in the future can happen.
Yeah. I know what's going through his head there. It's Fenway. It's a pretty small ballpark, so that's why I don't really know why he's going for this secondary league. But there's 2 outs. If Bichette hits a ball in the gap, he's wanting to score. So that's why he is trying to get off the base. But especially if you're going to hit to right field, which Bichette does pretty often, it's going to be real hard for you to get around those bases, especially if Rafael is going to be getting that ball. He does have a very good arm, very good fielder. We saw a couple diving catches from him in this series as well. So I just don't think in that scenario, you already got 2 runs in the inning. You're going to have Addison Barger up after Bichette. I just think it's too big of a risk to have that secondary lead. And then obviously you don't even give Bichette a chance to drive you in when he has been by far the best in that situation on this baseball team.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. As we continue on, series preview, possibly the biggest series of the year.
Absolutely. 100% chance it is.
We'll come back with all that. Well, here we go. We have been saying the Toronto Blue Jays have been getting lucky with the pitchers that they have faced or haven't faced in some of their series. Well, they did not get lucky when they're going up against the Yankees this time, and the matchups might concern you, Carter. I'm going to go into them. I want you to give me your total thoughts after. So Monday's game, Carlos Rodon, Max Scherzer. Tuesday's game, Max Fried, Kevin Gausman. Game 3, Will Warren and Jose Berrios. Game 4, Clark Schmidt, Chris Bassitt. I am so excited. A Canada Day game on Tuesday. Are they going to be wearing the Reds?
Yeah, they absolutely are.
Blue Jays in the Reds, Yankees, Blue Jays. 2 teams battling for the AL East. I cannot wait for this series. I am actually I don't know if I've been more excited for a series than this one now. So I hope it doesn't go terribly bad because that would break my heart a little bit.
Well, and the issue is that this team is horrible in their red jerseys. And you're going against Max Fried on Canada Day. That's not necessarily something that I'm going to be super excited for. I'm pretty nervous for this series. Like you absolutely need to split, but this is really going to tell like where you kind of sit in the AL East. Are you going to be able to compete with the New York Yankees down the stretch? You have them 7 times in the next 3 weeks, so that is a massive stretch for the Toronto Blue Jays team. Right now, like we saw the Red Sox, their offense, even with Bregman back, even with Yoshida back, I don't think they'll be able to compete. And then when you're throwing out Walker Buehler every 5 days, the way that guy's pitching, Brian Bayo has been pretty solid this year. So they're getting some good stuff from him, Garrett Crochet. But these do have some issues with that bullpen and that starting rotation. I think it's kind of a 3-team race now. Tampa Bay proving a lot of people wrong. I know you weren't high on Tampa Bay at all going into this season. But they obviously they find ways to hang around. They don't have anyone necessarily that's jumping off the page in that lineup. Like they do have some good players, but they find a way to just be a thorn, especially in the Toronto Blue Jays side. So it's kind of this 3-team race that I think we're going to see down the stretch, unless the Orioles somehow go on this crazy run. Don't really think that's going to happen. But it just sucks that in this scenario, like I'm not mad that they have to go against Max Fried. They have been lucky this entire season with the pitchers they're going against. We thought we might miss Rodon. He is going to pitch against Max Scherzer on Monday night. By the way, what a better scenario than that. Seeing Max Scherzer Canada Day weekend against the Yankees, big series for the season. You see Max Scherzer under the bright lights on a Monday night. How does it get better than that? But they missed Marcus Stroman, and this team would have eaten Marcus Stroman alive. So that is a little bit unfortunate for this team. I think going over the pitching matchups, the only one I think the Blue Jays have the advantage in is that Jose Berrios start over Will Warren. Like they have competitive pitching though. Like Kevin Gausman can give you a very good outing, obviously, especially building off that last outing he did have. Chris Bassitt's ERA went up 0.7 points, so now it was like it went from a 3.6 to a 4.3. So that's not a great look, but I expect him to bounce back as well. And then the only pitcher you don't have going in this series is Eric Lauer. Kind of sucks the way Eric Lauer has been pitching, but the offense is going to have to show up. The offense is going to have to continue playing like they have been. You do get a couple of lefties in this series, so maybe you don't see a lot from Ashton Barge, but Ernie Clement going to be in that lineup. Miles Straw going to be in that lineup. Might see a little bit of Davis Schneider. I know you're going to be a fan of that as well. Hopefully it can be a Yankee killer. But Brayden, I'll throw it over to you. What are you expecting from the Toronto Blue Jays in the series?
To me, this is could be a big series from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This is a guy that he always gets compared to, right? The big bad Aaron Judge comes, they're facing off.
Yeah, that's not a comparison. Aaron Judge is beating the hell out of Vladdy on that one.
Yes, but I think it is a prove it time for Vladdy here. People are going to want to see him make his money, and what a better way to do so than beating up on the Bronx brass there in New York, right? Vladdy, I don't know. Aaron Judge battling it out, Canada Day. I don't know if it gets better, dude. I love this time of year. Especially when it becomes like with the national pride stuff that's going on right now in Canada and everything like that. I think what a perfect time for the AL East battle here. And I don't know. I'm expecting a big 4 games from Vladdy here to go out there and prove, that all this money and all this hype and all this talk was worth it. And he's going to want to show it, especially against Aaron Judge.
Yeah, we'll be able to see kind of how this team can put up against the New York Yankees. Like Rodon, Max Fried, and Clark Schmidt have all been very good this season. So you have this thing where the Toronto Blue Jays maybe have been kind of getting lucky with the schedule. Now you got 3 guys that have been certified dogs this season. So you're going to have some good at-bats. If Vladdy could just be mentioned in the same conversation as Aaron Judge, I think that's a great spot for any baseball player to be in. If you get compared to Aaron Judge in any sort of facet, probably not the best comparison, obviously. But maybe we'll see if Vladdy can outcompete Aaron Judge. Has been a Yankee killer in the past. Imagine we get like a 3 home run game from Vladdy. I know Garrett Cole's not pitching, would be a little bit more beneficial. But let's just have Garrett Cole there in spirit anyway. Might be on the bench anyway. So maybe that will just ignite Vladdy for that little stretch that we do have against the Yankees in this series. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I'm okay with the split here. I don't mind it. I think you definitely got to win that Jose Berrios start. I think you have a chance to win every single game in this series because you do have, I'm a lot more confident in the starting rotation now than I was like 3 weeks ago. So I think every starter in this rotation right now against the Yankees can give this team a chance to win. But what I want to see in this series is I want to see Vladdy home runs. I really want him to have a good series against the New York Yankees. I wanted to bring this guy up just because of how good he has been recently. We just keep talking about it. It's George Springer. I mean, yeah, just the biggest resurrection of all time. Like, well, over his last 7 games, that guy is 12 for 25, has 8 RBIs, a 480 average, an OPS of 1119. Like, every time you think George Springer might start to fall off and it might kind of, fall back to earth and go back to those 2024 ways, He just says, screw you, I'm going to launch this baseball into orbit. And the one thing that we have seen change from George Springer is before we kind of saw him rolling over and making a ton of soft contact, you can have a problem with making too much contact because you're just hitting every single ball, especially if they're not in the strike zone. You're probably having soft contact, you're rolling over, and you're not having good at-bats. George Springer's just sacrificed the whiff. Like, he is whiffing a little bit more this season, but he is hammering the hell out of the baseball. If you hit the baseball hard, you're probably going to have a better season, and that is one thing George Springer has been doing. So I want to see him activate in the series and kind of continue the trend. I also want to see the benches clear. I just think that we need some entertainment. It is a big rivalry series. Let's see John Schneider, somebody get fired up in the series. I think even that first start, maybe against Carlos Rodon, we got Mad Max on the mound. Maybe we'll see some language, be flying off the chains from Max Scherzer, especially if I'm hoping things go well, but things don't go well. Maybe we see some fireworks in this series.
Hey, I don't mind that. I don't mind a little heart, a little passion in the game. So maybe we'll see that. And you're right. I'm convinced George Springer has made a deal with the devil because I don't know how in the world this has happened. But I'm here for it. I'm all here for the George Springer love affair back reunited with the Blue Jays fans. So keep it going. This should be an amazing series. Let us know how you guys are feeling going into this one. Are you terrified? Are you shaking in your boots? Or do you feel confident in what the boys can bring here? So let us know. Let us know your thoughts, feelings down below. And it's going to be a crazy week for us here on the pod. I'm going to be right dialed into every game, and it should be a great one. We'll talk to you guys later. Join us tomorrow for another episode after game 1 of the series. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and we appreciate everybody listening everywhere else.